sharing of
Sorry, I forgot to record.
I saw a lot of sharing, I think, should be a huge part of the retreat. Like, what is it that is working really well at your location that you like, want to put some shine on and let other people know about? And then a lot of different kinds of like problems of practice or like things to dig into in different avenues. So the retreat agenda is very open at the moment. We're planning for right before ALA starts, and we'll have a really good chunk of funding from the Chicago Public Library Foundation to support travel to Chicago for a like full day convening retreat. But in terms of how that will actually look, I think some people on the call have been to previous convenings, but a lot of people probably haven't. We haven't had one in probably 4, maybe 5 years now. It's been a while. Yeah. So yeah, we in Chicago are like very open to collaborating on like a shared agenda so that we can all get the most out of that day. And I don't know if there's anything in particular from this document that folks wanted to like elevate as if we didn't do this at the convening, we would be totally doing ourselves a disservice. Like, this is a thing we absolutely have to do. So I don't know if anyone wants to shout out like a particular thing that stood out to them.
Well, I think one big thing is the introduction of the new staff. Again, I was fortunate enough to come along with the process and see a lot of it grow, if you will. And so since then, all of the staff that I brought on have don't really see the full picture of what's happening nationwide. And so I think that's going to be a big piece for why our staff will be there. It's one thing to do it in a space, but then it's another thing to really kind of have that aha moment, like, no, this is really kind of some major stuff we're involved in and not just a after school program.
Yeah, when I look at the document, I see a lot of variations on brainstorming ideas. And I think for the actual programming, we'll want to build some kind of intentionality and organization around that. So it's productive.
Yeah, I love an unconference, but sometimes if you don't have a couple like seed conversations, right? Like, people might be hesitant to like jump in there.
You mean like now?
Well,
I talk too much as it is, so that's why I'm being quiet, guys.
can we share the document in here? So we don't have to maybe switch back and forth. I don't know. Let's see.
You want me to like share my screen?
Well, I guess it's kind of long. It wouldn't make sense. Never mind.
It might be hard to read, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Marcus, did I talk over you?
No, go ahead. I'm kind of just thinking out loud.
So Megan at SFPL The Mix. I feel to take a step back from Marcus's point, to observe from another library system, some YOUmedia spaces in their labor management environment were able to hire people like Marcus who come in with a background in media production and that kind of expertise, and have had higher leadership who come into a library setting with a knowledge of sort of educational best practices and curriculum design. And other library spaces in our labor management environments could not create a brand new job description, right? Had to work within existing old school, trying to impose new school librarianship in using, I'm immediately thinking of, you can't tear down the master's house using the master's tools, right? And so if we're trying to create this huge paradigm shift, there is an opportunity in a convening of YOUmedia to actually put in a room together institutions that have that kind of framework built into their YOUmedia spaces, and institutions that are doing the best they can through librarianship and partnerships that might come and go. And I just keep, like, I don't know exactly what I'm asking for out of that, but that a convening is an opportunity for some knowledge sharing and guidepost creation that some institutions just cannot build themselves. And I think, to me, that's what I'd like to see out of a convening.
I'm wondering when you were talking about it made me think about the annual report that we do to be like a part of the YOUmedia network. And I can't remember the questions off the top of my head, but I'm wondering if there could be something like that, like a survey of some kind that comes out before the convening to kind of assess some of those different pieces to like there might be an opportunity to have folks do some like pre-thinking before they arrive at the convening. Because I think having people, jump in and speak off the cuff is great in terms of like sharing things, but I wonder about if you are prepared to come for a certain kind of conversation, maybe that will be a more fruitful conversation.
Mhm.
Or if there's some kind of like information collection that we would want to do previous to the convening to kind of assess. Because like I don't have a good sense of who in the system, right, has had that challenge or not had that challenge around like bureaucracy and the, job titles and that kind of thing, right? I think it
Right.
varies a lot.
Right, and I have thought about that. Even, is this like a sub channel of the community of practice that I wish existed, rather than something to build into the convening? Because you're right. I mean, San Francisco Public Library did kind of a bonkers thing in the scale of all of the YOUmedia spaces, that we built out physically these big spaces without doing an internal assessment of what kind of change we could do to the job descriptions, right? Not everybody's San Francisco, not everybody has our funding stream. We could be like the one weird beast out there struggling with that situation. So I would not want to take up space and time just troubleshooting that weird environment that we're in.
No, I don't think it's weird at all.
Yeah.
I think that's the hard conversation to have, and that's what makes it, again, things that Matt can do with tools, even as dynamic as our space is, we can't do with tools. And so again, what is the landscape that makes it possible where you are? Is it just a matter of administration not, wanting to take the risk, or is it real labor things that prevent young people from using certain tools and climbing on a ladder? So again, that could be state, that could be municipal. So I think you have to have that conversation, and maybe that's a panel discussion where we have a variety of people that have navigated this thing in different ways, talking about those experiences, because again, our administration bought into it and flipped standard library positions to digital media positions, pointedly. And so again, if that's a conversation that, how does that happen? I'm willing to, have that discussion with folks again. So,
And
I
we're
think
currently in that process. We're going through that change right now. So we would love to get some feedback and have a conversation about that.
Well, when when you started talking, that was the first thing I thought, because I actually had come over here from Alicia's library, and that's those issues of staffing changes, leadership changes. How do you build buy-in from the new leadership team? Or even just explain, like for me coming to a new library, it's explaining the value of YOUmedia to my team here. And then at the old library, it's like, okay, you've got a new leadership team and you have something that I can't speak for Alicia, but that was valued. And then there's people kind of challenging that, saying, well, is that really something we should do? It's disheartening, but having a pack of goods where you can say, okay, here's why you should do those things, and I'm going to be able to build a case and have some kind of do some of the lifting or help with some of the lifting to make our case.
Well, and we have had like versions of convenings where there is like an expectation around like documentation and output too. Because like in my mind, this kind of work would be great to kick off at a convening, but we're not gonna like solve the whole problem. Like it's probably a working group for year, you know, like that is thinking intently about that particular problem. So I wonder if there is a way to like kick off the work at the convening, establish those connections, like get the right people in the room to start that, and then have like a longer term kind of like dedicated effort working group around that. And maybe there are other like areas too, like maybe there are like a couple of kind of I hate to say evergreen, but like, you know, there are some problems with our institutions, right? As much as we wish they would be solved, it's probably like a lifetime of effort to move them in a better direction. Like they're not going to get solved overnight. So I wonder if there are other topics like that that we could focus around.
I think that's a great way to really get some mileage out of a one-day component. I just think it's a great idea. I was almost going to say something similar. That's why.
I think one thing that I am thinking of this and why I think this is so valuable, super grateful to Chicago for helping make it happen, is that when we think about all these other networks that are doing programming in library, and that the maker movement in libraries is not a new thing anymore. You know, YOUmedia, we're not really one of the only ones doing it. And as we talk to other groups like Christina and I did a couple weeks ago that are doing interesting work and kind of want to pull the YOUmedia network folks into it, is like taking a chance to sort of reflect on like, okay, what is our identity as a YOUmedia like brand or as YOUmedia members? What, again, we have those benchmarks, like, you know, refreshing those benchmarks. Are they still, and perhaps, yes, a working group where we spend, you know, another year going through and saying, are these all still correct? Is that sort of the post-emergent work still kind of going ahead, and just sort of like refreshing as an organization would be valuable, I think, to me, but then also perhaps to go and be able to take that and go back and speak to our admin or our donors, which I do in a lot of cases, about the YOUmedia network, about like why we're doing this, why it's important, and why we're different than just regular like teen programming or youth programming.
I think another thing too is important is reaffirming our stake in the ground, if you will, because what he made me just think, there's a lot of wildcat things popping up, a lot of website organizations, and so for the people that are not in the fray of the work, where do we fall into, you know, when our, say for example, when our executive director hears YOUmedia, hears, you know, Makers in the Library, here's Remake Learning Days, here KC STEM Alliance, and all of this stuff, and then here's YOUmedia, what does that mean in this, you know, ecosystem of things? And so I think it's also another chance for us to kind of pop that up, and for those member organizations be able to provide some kind of new data, some new information, some new best practices that they can hang their hat on, that kind of puts us, you know, I don't want to necessarily say at the forefront or at the center of these conversations.
Oh, yeah, Alicia, for scheduling purposes, so ALA runs June 22nd to the 27th. So we're thinking about the 21st, like the day right before it starts. We're thinking like a full day, like a 9 to 5-ish situation. We'll buy everybody lunch, we'll get some like pastries and coffee in the morning, like, yeah, we're gonna like make it a comfortable day. Like we're gonna be talking a lot, and there'll be a lot of like opportunities to connect, but we're still trying to like figure out the exact format. And I did just talk to Taylor Bayless, who's the manager of our YOUmedia space at Harold Washington, which is our like giant space downtown. And we're gonna be able to start the day in there too. So folks will be able to see that space. And then I'm gonna work on, I think that day will be so full, we won't have an opportunity to see some of our other locations. We have 29 dedicated YOUmedia spaces, and then we have other kinds of team spaces around the system. So I'm gonna look at working with some staff around there for folks who are gonna, you know, stay on through ALA or an extra couple days if they could, you know, like if you want to go see another location, because they're all very different. So
Now, I was talking with my boss about the conference, and she was explaining that that first day is actually all administration and not standard fare for people attending. And so what we send, and so with that being the case, if their schedule says the 21st, then we could be there the 21st doing that, because there's nothing that people can do versus the 20th. Which was the day before it was actually starting. I just wanted to see, that was the conversation we was having, but she's kind of involved in that process. So it might make sense to shift that date to that administrative date versus the day before.
yeah, I'm not sure what the schedule is for that, for June 22nd on ALA. And I think it depends if you're involved with like any of the ALA working groups. You might,
Right.
I don't,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's
Nick,
what
I
she
don't,
was saying. The first day is like that kind of admin member stuff and not for regular attendees. And so I was just checking to see if that shifts our first day, since it wouldn't be stuff that they could do or we could do.
yeah, I don't know, Nick, have you been on some of those pre-things?
I have, yeah, but it's been a couple of years, and I think it was like the day before, but I almost feel like it was the day before even the published start of the convention or the conference, technically. I'm trying to
Yes.
pull up their calendar
21st
right
is
now.
safe. That's a safe
Yeah.
date. 22nd can get iffy, and I know I've got some things going on, and they don't have the schedule really played out. And so I would prefer not to have it on the 22nd, because I might have some, hello, we expected you to be here at 1 o'clock. We sent our message last night. So it's like, oh, okay, thanks. So yes, 21st is great. After the 21st, it gets a little, yeah, thank you for understanding.
Sorry, go ahead, Julie.
Oh, I was just gonna ask you, yeah, I don't know what else you have for the meeting, so I didn't want to take up all the time.
Well, I did want to ask just a few questions about kind of that are more logistical. So if just because we're on this note, I thought I'd keep going in this direction for a second. So we're still in conversation about how, like, we don't really have designed out how to support each lab in sending someone yet. You know, our desire would be to like have you know, a form where we collect all the names of who's coming from each lab via these dollars, like who needs the support, and then, you know, a travel agent to talk to make the travel plans, that kind of thing. And then we're thinking about, and then we thought that the registration from ALA could potentially be covered for this person too, because some of the, you know, some of you are going to be presenting at ALA. So it's sort of a nice opportunity if people want to go to the conference itself. So that's the kind of thing we started talking about, but the actual how we get that done is still in is still being worked through. So that's, you know, one flight and one registration. I guess I'm curious, like, what else, like from your lab's perspective, and each lab is going to be really different, and each lab is going to be, you know, what are other needs you would have, or other questions that would come up? I mean, I know, for instance, you know, Matt's not at a library, and we heard from John Brown, who's at the Springfield Public School District, right? Like his YOUmedia is a public school. So the questions are gonna be really different from those spaces. But I just wanted to open up, like what would be helpful to you if we could imagine it? And, you know, just knowing we haven't looked at the numbers and we can't promise anything right now. I think like loosely with numbers, we can do flight and registration for each lab. And then beyond that, what else would be helpful? I'd just be curious to know. Or we'd be curious to know.
I know from my perspective, and I may be a little lucky on this, but if I went and said, you know, they're going to pay for flight and this, would you then be willing to cough up the rest of the money? And I don't think they would have any issue knowing that it's like a cost sharing situation.
Right. So that would be a helpful design for you. Great. Okay.
Do we have a ballpark number or of how many people we might want to, that we're anticipating inviting at least?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I'm calculating, we're trying to quickly onboard labs right now that have applied, and like just make sure we have like all the people that we want that can be there to be there. So I think that's like 25, 26 labs, right? So if there's at least one from each of those, and then I suspect there's probably someone, especially from the libraries, like a second person from the libraries might be there. I don't know. So maybe it's in the like 30s to 40s. Julie, do you have a sense? Like, what were you?
I mean, I'm just ballparking here. So we have like roughly 40 grand to spend on transportation support and registration fees and whatever. I think when we looked at the numbers for like registration, depending on your status, it's anywhere from like 2 to 350, and then plus flight, plus hotel for at least one night. I think at least $1,000 per person. If we could do that, and then we could have at least 40 people at the retreat. I feel like, and you know, for different sites that might be a little different. So I think like we're probably close to the 40 to 50 people. I'm sorry, yeah, 40 to 50 people-ish. So maybe that's one person from a site. Maybe a site can't, you know, or maybe it's 2 people. Maybe there are 3 from
Yeah, there might be a way to
It's like-
apply for additional support if your lab really needs it. I was thinking, sorry, Julie, not to cut you off, but just like I feel like we should do a need, like there should be a needs piece, because I know some labs are really different than other labs.
Well, then I'm also thinking for us, I would like to get at least one of our new people down to partake on so that's, you know, potentially asking for more. The flip side is we're not going to be flying because it would take longer to get through security and stuff than it would be to just drive down to Chicago. So,
Oh, true. Right. So that frees up some dollars. Yeah, I was thinking also about this, the thing that you wanting to have new people there. And then, you know.
Which then does, from my way of thinking, take us back to what are the major conversation topics going to be? Because if it's sort of those communicating with your admin, steering the ship, figuring out which parts of YOUmedia goal setting we can do right now, that's kind of more me as the manager, overarching manager, and Jason. If it's how are you doing your programs? How much has your door count dropped? How are you doing outreach? And who else has a department where we've had enough staff turnover that everybody's afraid of the 3D printer? Then it's a new frontline librarian.
Good point.
If we're, depending on how many people we're looking at, but say we're looking at having 40 people there, potentially, and I'm just spitballing, so do with this what you will, but potentially we could do 2 tracks, one that's kind of that manager supervisor track, and one that's the, okay, here's the boots on the ground, here's the things you see day to day. Although a lot of that, especially for us in smaller places, those 2 things cross over a great deal, because sometimes we're the manager and the boots on the ground.
Yes, but what an interesting idea to have like, yeah, to have like 2 tracks, or if we are able to say 2 people per branch or per, location or whatever, it's like have your senior, your staff, your senior member or your admin member, and then have that like almost like that the very newest member of the team, and then it's also interesting sort of professional development and team building for those 2 people as well. I would love to take like my newest employee with me to this.
Yeah, and I put this at the chat. I think I'm pushing for as many people from the broader network, because we do have a lot of people in Chicago, and I absolutely don't want this to just be like Chicago Fest. Like, I want to make sure that we're balancing that out too.
That's great. Thank you for being cognizant of that, Julie.
Although it is kind of cool. I feel like they should like all descend at one point so we could like see them at least. Like, wow, look at that. It's happening all over Chicago.
I am requesting that they all come for the whole day, because it falls on our regular PD day. So I would at least get them for half a day. So already, so at least half a day, but maybe the whole thing. Yeah.
That's interesting to think when we think of planning then. Is the half a day presumably the morning sessions, or, okay. So that'd be an interesting way to think about how we break up. Is there more networking, large, exciting kind of stuff going on in the morning, and then more smaller breakout groups in the afternoon, or how would that break up?
I think that sounds great, because I think we can all acknowledge that after having a wonderful lunch in the afternoon, sitting down, listening to someone talk might make us a little drowsy. So having a nice dynamic small group would be conducive to the best possible outcomes.
I know that Julia talked yesterday about trying to take on the Hamago way of working at the convening, just so that it's not talk, Alicia, because that doesn't seem really like in the spirit necessarily. So maybe there's some making and stuff too.
Well, I think Matt was mentioning too, when we did that, like, or maybe it was Marcus, that resource share out too, like a kind of science fair tables, and like everyone gets to like show off
Oh yeah.
all their projects that they've been working on too. I would love to do some of that too.
It would be neat to try to, like pump in as many contributions as possible into like a short amount of time, almost like a Sparks talk, or like I never say it right, but is it Pachakacha? Y'all know what I'm talking about? But like we could have 30 different people all present in like a 45-minute time zone or something, or time frame, or have it more like what we did in wherever that was, where it was like a big room and everyone was walking around. It was almost like a little exhibition, but it would be really fun to hear from like everybody in a very short amount of time, get everyone's blood flowing, get everyone kind of excited until we break into more like thoughtful, groups or discussions or what have you.
I'm sorry, I'll be the one to ask. Pachak, what?
Yes, Pachakacha. I'm going to explain it very poorly, but it's a lot of almost 1 minute or 3 minute presentations that are just rapid fire.
I think it's like you have, I forget what the thing is, but you have like 20 slides and you have to say them within like
Yeah, a certain amount of time.
3 minutes or something. So the slides move and you just have to keep talking.
And it's kind of like the Sparks talk, although the Sparks talk is not necessarily in, presentation kind of, but it's just like here you have a 2 or 3 minute kind of presentation just to get the juices flowing, so to speak. But yeah, it's a fun word also, so that you got that.
In terms of agenda for this meeting, we don't have that much more to talk about. So really, I guess just for the sake of communicating it like this through this recording, we're talking about June 21st in Chicago at the Harold Washington Library, right, Julie? From 9 to 5, give or take. Yeah, we should just keep, I think we'll get back to everybody about how we can sort of distribute the travel support. As soon as we can. We also know the early bird for ALA for the registration is like mid-March. So our goal would be to hit that. But we're sort of hoping everybody can start to talk to their administrators and, figure out the sort of institutional piece and then be in touch about, specific needs or asks that come up, because that'll help inform kind of like what's a fair distribution across the network. So those are just, yeah, go
A
ahead.
quick question. I heard, to me, I heard conflicting info about room and board. Are we just talking about flight and registration? Or are we also talking about possibly a hotel? Because that's going to come up with my admin.
Yeah, it's a good question. Julie had some thoughts on that, so I'll turn to Julie.
Yeah, I think that's on the table. We have to work out how we would get the money to your institution, whether it's we're sending you a lump sum or we're actually booking the travel on your behalf. And there might be some like variation based on your institution, but that's part of the conversation that Christina and I need to have with our foundation to get some of those pieces in place. But we're meeting with them later this month, so I think by sometime in February, definitely by the end of February, we would have that settled.
Great, thanks.
So if those are the things that everybody has to know, we can just keep brainstorming sort of different ways of working at this event until our meeting time is over. And I was just going to say that we might want to share this document. I'll share it out with the network just via the email list. But if you have colleagues who want to add their thoughts about how to use about the convening, I think we can keep having people add things in this document so that the team thinking this through can really work from there. And the team thinking this through are program coordinators right now, but if anybody wants to help plan this convening, raise your hand now, because we welcome any help in planning this convening. Nick, hand raised, woohoo.
So sorry, I need to jump, but thank you all so much. This was super helpful. Good to see you all.
Thanks, Julie.
You don't mean us, do you? Or
Well, you're already implicated for working on the
that's
convening.
what I was thinking.
Yeah, I was thinking additional people if anybody's, particularly interested in helping design it. And Brian, I was going to say, Brian was saying that, he'd love to work on sort of the mess around. You mean like the sort of sharing piece, right, Brian?
Well, I guess I was thinking if we were talking about actually having a Homego component where
Yeah.
we're actually living it, doing that piece of it where we have a little project that we can work on, whether it's over lunch or as part of a breakout. I don't know. It's just, we're still kind of in that planning stage at this point.
Yeah. It'd be great to hear what people really want, like most want to work on too, because. And Megan, appreciate your thoughts on sort of how to dig into this other stuff. If you want to think more about that too, just let us know.
As a lifelong overthinker, I'm more than happy to.
Cool.
Just don't let it give you monkey brain when you're trying to go to sleep at night.
Point taken.
Oh, can I also just add before I forget, and I guess I'll put it in the notes, is that I think it'd be awesome if we spent a minute or two at this thing talking about the new website and forum and try to breathe a little life into that
That's
thing.
a really good point. Yeah. Let's put that on the list so we don't forget. It's awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I've already said this, but I feel like, in fact, a lot of the points I've raised today for the convening are actually things that I've been thinking about that I'd love to see into a revived community of practice board. The admin track versus boots on the ground track, that's actually something that I've thought about a lot, that I wish we had that on the community of practice. As well, the information sharing that, I don't know how we get there, but for that to be, I think that when we all started, that's what we wanted this living environment to be, and to get us back there, get the band back together. Yeah, would love it.
I think that's great. And we made this shift to a new space, but it really hasn't taken off, and having everybody together to really think about it and consider it would be helpful. Alicia, I just saw your note. Good job.
I mean, I'd love to, but I have to control myself. Oh, yes, I want to help. No, stop, calm down. The people can do stuff.
But you'll be there, so we're excited. And there will be, so let me just say this too, that there'll probably be like 5 new labs by the time we get there. So Menasha, am I saying that right, Brian? Menasha, okay. Menasha, Macmillan, Alicia's Macmillan, New York Public Library, hopefully, is coming on. And Columbus is coming back to the YOUmedia network. So that's only 4. I don't know what the other one is that I'm forgetting, but 4 or 5.
New York Public probably counts for, 2 or 3 at least.
Yeah, they're a little on the big side. Oh, I guess that LAPL just came on too recently. So they really haven't been to anything yet. They're fairly new to the network too.
Which one was that last one?
LA.
Oh, LA, gotcha.
Yeah, the main library in LA has a YOUmedia, the Octavia Lab.
I also want to remind everybody that I think that the high point of the last YOUmedia convening was the karaoke with sushi afterwards. We don't have to recreate that moment, but something similar Chicago style would be marvelous.
I remember the karaoke. I forgot the sushi part.
How do you forget the good part?
Somehow.
The karaoke gets pretty real at these.
Yeah, for me, that karaoke would only be done by me if I want to punish you guys for something.
All right, we're at the top of the hour, everyone. Thank you so much. And yeah, this is exciting. Thank you, Chicago, although Julia already left.
I gotta bounce. You guys have a great day.
Okay,
That's that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
thanks, everyone. Have a good
Bye.
rest.
See you soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Not trying to be weird, Christine, I just wanted you to know.
Yeah,
Thanks, bye.
okay, all right. No problem.